Good day.
Welcome to the Happy People podcast.
Thank you.
I'm E, and you are
Abby.
Abby.
Well, Abigail on a Sunday, normally, when I'm in trouble. But yeah, Abby.
Abigail on
Yeah.
Sunday. Abby,
It's
you're
my Sunday name.
you're from the UK.
I am. I'm from a little village called Blackrock in Lancashire, which is kind of just north of Manchester. But I live in Melbourne, Australia, and I've actually been there for 11 years. Last week.
11 years.
Yeah, I know. It's actually crazy because I moved over when I was 21, and I'm still there. And so all of my adult life has been in Australia, which is just crazy.
So you're I kind of have a similar story in terms of like Brooklyn. And so all my adult life was my late teens and all my adult life was Brooklyn, and then LA.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Your family still in Brooklyn?
I have a lot of family in Brooklyn, but most of my family is in the South. So,
whereabouts in the South?
Virginia, North Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah, all over.
Yeah, we're quite small. There's only we're quite a small family, and because we're village folk, everyone stays in the village.
Okay.
So like my uncles and all my family all live within like walking distance of my mum and dad. And then there's me. I left home at 17 to go to uni. I went to Edinburgh for uni.
Right.
And then from Edinburgh, I met my partner. I met a boy.
Right.
And flew over to Australia for a gap year. It wasn't really a gap year. It was more of an adventure.
Right.
And then I just got stuck.
Right.
And then we broke up.
And then you were there.
Yeah. And then I was there. So I was like, well, I may as well stay here now.
I mean, it happens. So, funnily enough, my family owned the land that I started on, born and grew up on. My grandfather's land.
Yeah.
He had 20 kids.
20 kids?
He had 20 kids.
Far out.
Between 2 women. So.
That's so many babies.
Yeah. So everybody was close.
Yeah.
And it was like our own village.
How were the 2 women? Were the 2 women close?
No. He outlived them both.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay. Well,
so
no wonder 10 kids eat well.
Yeah, pretty much.
On average.
Yeah, pretty much 10 kids each.
Wow.
And he actually, stayed married until they departed and then remarried. So.
Oh, good on it. That's good.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of mouths to feed, though. 20 kids is a hellish amount of food.
So granddad was farmer, lumberjack, hunter,
very self-sufficient,
and preacher.
Amazing.
Built his own church.
Did he really?
Yeah. Still there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good
He
on
built a
him.
bunch of churches.
Oh, good.
Up and down the East Coast. So, that's the stuff I come from on one side. Anyway.
Amazing. Are you religious?
I am not. I grew up in an extremely religious environment, and so I think that kind of like, if anybody that kind of grows up with it, like you don't have an option, really, like you kind of, I think you kind of push out of it. Like the first house I lived in was like a Muslim household.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so right next to a Baptist church that my so like crazy, right?
I mean, it's very good for your kind of education and your,
right.
You're open to a lot of different things, and I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I come from a long line of atheists
on
one side, and then I think my dad's parents were quite religious, but then kind of fell away from it when my granddad died. I think my nana she struggled with his death, and I think that really messed with her faith.
That's natural. That's very natural.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't say I'm overly religious.
I am not. So interestingly enough, right? On my father's side, there's no religion. Sometimes my dad likes to pretend he's religious, but my grandmother was kind of like a bootlegger. Like she sold liquor under she sold. My grandfather passed early, and so she had to support her family. She never remarried. She had like
She's a
10
hustler.
sons.
She was
10 kids.
Tens.
Let's
Lots of tens.
A
lot of babies.
Huge.
This is a big family.
People are bored. They don't have much to
Yeah.
do.
What are you going to do?
Right. So, yeah, she like sold liquor, had card games, and there were people in and out of the house.
Oh well, I mean, fair. You've got to make a living,
right?
You know, you've got to do something.
So there was. I know that she had like a Jesus photo in her house. There was a photo with Jesus, but there was not much like real time acknowledgement of.
Maybe she's just keeping up appearances.
Yeah. Also, she's Native American.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So.
I think religion is one thing, and I appreciate religion for giving people hope and giving people something to believe in, faith, and you know, in situations that are devastating or whatever, it gives people you know, something to hold on to, and people do need it, and they really do. But I also, you know, I kind of resent religion for a lot of the.
I do too. I have
a lot of the other stuff. So
I have no use for it.
Exactly. I have no use for it either. And I think it's got the good and the bad.
And have an experience like this sort of loss that makes you that will shake faith. Like my brother passed a couple years ago.
I'm sorry. That's tough.
So like if you're religious, like it's interesting because part of my family, like his twin, went deeper into religion. When before he was not like in it.
Yeah, that's it. It's exactly that. Like you're either going to go deeper in because of it, and it helps support your grief,
right?
Or you're going to completely turn your back on it.
I was already not religious, and like after that, I'm like, yeah, if you're like in control and that's happening, fuck out of here.
No, that's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That's really rough.
Yeah. I'm recovering. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one sister, and she's 18 months older than me, and she's an absolute pain in the arse. She's caused me that much trouble in my life. We didn't get on until we were about 20.
Right.
And she was just really difficult, but yeah, she's still my sister. She's my best friend.
Yeah.
And I love her. And it's your siblings are so they're so important to who you are.
To your growth and development.
Yeah. How many other siblings have you got?
I grew up with
10.
8.
Oh, you have to count them.
So I grew up with 7. I would make 8, and then my father had about 20 between other women. All different women.
Oh my God! Do you know them all?
I do not. I know. I have a brother who was born a month before me with the same name, technically, different mothers in Brooklyn, and I have quite a few. I have sisters in Chicago, Atlanta, Alabama, probably some in Korea because he served in the war.
Wow,
probably some in Germany because he lived there.
Okay.
My mom's telling me story. So like,
gee whiz.
And then one that grew up with him that looks just like me as well. Yeah, he raised one, the one that grew up with him that looks just like me.
Oh gosh.
The rest of us were just like with our moms.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was, interesting. It's interesting.
It would be.
But I guess in those times, women didn't push for like child support and stuff like that.
They push for anything.
Yeah.
Because the likelihood of them actually succeeding was slim.
Especially with that guy. He was like, he was all over the place. So.
Yeah. Look, you gotta live and let live. But still.
I've reconciled with whatever. Yeah, I don't have to reconcile with him. He has to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you have a relationship with him now?
We actually don't speak. But it's not because he didn't raise me. We don't. I called him this year for his birthday for the first time in like over 10 years.
Wow.
But we don't speak because of things he's done.
Oh. Yeah.
After the fact.
Okay. All right. Okay. How did the call go when you called him?
People who live like that, they don't acknowledge that they've done.
They don't know. They don't know what they've done something
They're just doing what they do. So.
Yeah.
It was brief. I said, happy birthday. I didn't go as far as saying I forgive you, but I had forgiven him already without, going through all that. And happy birthday, Pop. Love you.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I've kind of realised as I've grown older is that you can't hold on to shit because it doesn't serve you to hold on to it. You have to let that. You have to let it go. Um, I've held grudges before, and I've never hated anybody. I think hate's a very strong word.
Right.
But I've never hated anybody. But I've held grudges and held resentment towards people, and it doesn't do me any favours.
No, it doesn't.
So I think that's all you can do for yourself. Is just let it fly.
So there was a point where I hated it, which I hated it. And something my mom told me really came back to me and kind of helped me like get rid of the hate, and it resonated. What she told me was something he told her, and he played on her religion. He was just like, "Don't lose your soul hating me for things I do, because the hate is going to make you lose your soul." And she was like, "You know what? You're right. I'm gonna let it go.
It'll eat you alive. It'll eat you alive, and it's not good for you, your mental health, or those around you if you're just going to bear grudges."
Right. And so what I realized is that what he was saying, what it means is that like it doesn't matter to him whether you hate him or not. You're carrying that hate.
Exactly.
It's growing in you. Like he doesn't care.
That's exactly
He'll do anything.
Yeah. It sounds like he's pretty self-absorbed.
Yeah. So like, you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So, how do you happen to be in Los Angeles?
Hey, LA. Yeah. So I'm on like a US road trip. I work with Millie Savage, who's an Australian jeweler, and she's at Coachella at the minute. She's left me here to run the shop, which is amazing.
Oh, she's loving it.
I bet she is. She started a jewelry brand about 10 years ago. It's amazing. It's really beautiful. It's completely whack. I've never seen anything quite like it before.
Right.
And we're based in Melbourne, have a really great business over there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of sitting maybe midway through last year saying, all right, what's next? We've got a really successful online business. The shop in Melbourne's doing great. We just moved to a bigger site. What are we going to do next? Because we can keep doing what we're doing now every day. It's great and it's fun and whatever, but it's a bit boring.
Right.
So do we open a second shop in Sydney, or do we open a shop in London, or do this or that and the next thing? And the decision was finally made. We sat down in McDonald's and had we were eating like hot chips and having like a soda water. Who goes to McDonald's and gets a soda water? Millie, she goes and gets like a soda water and a bag of chips, and we just sat in Macca's, and it was a 5-minute conversation, and the end of it was Macca's. McDonald's. I think in the UK as well we call it Mackey's.
Right.
So and then Australia calls it Macca's. What do you call it?
McDonald's.
Oh. Alright. But yeah, the end of the conversation was, let's do a couple of pop-ups. We'll do New York. If we're going to be in New York, we may as well go to LA. And then in August we'll go to London and do London. So nice. I'm on my LA leg.
Right.
Here we are, day 3.
How do you like LA? Woo! Let's talk.
Do you want me to be honest?
Yes, I want honesty, please.
Oh look, I'm always honest. I can't lie. You know,
what's the point?
Look, I really, really love New York.
Right.
We were staying in Brooklyn. We had a pop-up shop in Nolita. Right. It was fucking awesome. It was fast. It was dynamic. It was high energy. It was buzzing. Crazy, right? We were staying in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn was cool. And it was great. I loved it. I thought it was ace. And then we came to LA buzzing, and we got here, and I think the first kind of 48 hours were really, really fast because we landed at like lunchtime. We were on New York time. And then we had like 12 hours before we met you and got the keys to our shop. Right. And we were just like, go. And we were here, there, and everywhere in the flower districts, which just happened to be right next to Skid Row. Right. So the first stop in LA was like off the flight to check in, and Millie, bless her, fucked up the booking of the Airbnb. So we were in this shit dingy motel on Hollywood Boulevard. Called like a downtowner or something, and it's got like a big flashing light, and I was just like, oh god, where are we staying? So the first day was really intense, and then we were down, is it Midtown? Downtown? Downtown? Yeah. And it was actually a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Because I listen to a few podcasts with people based in LA and listening to.
Who do you listen to?
Oh, I listen to Theo Von.
Theo Von,
I
okay.
really love it. I think it's great. I like him as a pessimist, and I like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I knew that it was a little bit kind of rough and ready, and I was expecting, to see a lot of the homeless stuff that kind of just got apart a bit frequently.
Right.
But it was a shock to the system.
Mm.
It's intense.
Yeah.
And it's sad and it's disheartening, and it's really confronting, because at one minute you're driving through a suburb like, I don't know what suburb it would be, but with the big houses.
Right.
We're driving through these suburbs with this absolute, luxury and just extreme wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Like wealth that I can't even comprehend. Like I've come from a very poor background, grew up on the council estate in Northern England,
Mm-hmm.
But driving through, seeing all these mansions and these fancy cars, and
right.
I'm just like shit, because it's not even like, this is that side of things and this is that side of things. It's
right.
like it's together.
Yeah.
And it's so confronting, and it's a real eye opener.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
The desolation eats at my soul. And so I hate to see people like struggling in that manner, and then, to walk through it and, literally hear and see like the suffering, like, people screaming out in agony or in like delusion because of like their mental state or whatever, and like knowing that there's no real way out, exit route for them.
Exactly.
That's just their existence.
There's no plan, and there's no support, and there's no help, and there's nobody saying, "Hey, how are you? How can I help you? What can I do for you?" And it's like we went to this fancy dinner the other night, and it was really fun. I was talking to a couple of people there, and they were like, "What do you think of LA?" And I was like, I'm struggling with it a little bit, because it's really confronting, and I want to be able to help and contribute, and I know that there's nothing that I can do that's going to help in any significant way. Or that I'm aware of. Like I can,
we are one person. So.
Exactly, and it's hard.
And this is like, honestly, the history of it. I didn't mean to cut you, but the history of it, it's been ongoing, and it's just allowed to proliferate, right? So this is something that like administration has to address from their stances, and like literally create solutions.
Absolutely.
That brings people some relief, and then brings the that rest of the citizenry some relief from like the optics and the misery and the proximity to it. Like, you can't make it so blatant that you don't care.
Well, yeah, that's how it feels. It feels blatant, because at this dinner the other night, the people that are from LA and LA based are just like, oh yeah,
right.
And I'm like, what? Sorry, excuse me, and they just brush it off, and they're like, it's like something that they've grown up with, that they've seen all their life. And it's just second nature to them, and it's just part and parcel of living in LA. Whereas, obviously, coming in with a fresh pair of eyes, maybe a different attitude or a slightly more kind of empathetic mentality. I don't know what it is, but they were so dismissive of it. And I was like, how can you? They're people.
Right.
They're literally people on the streets, and nobody grows up thinking, oh fuck, I want to be homeless, I want to be a drug addict, I want to be on the street. You know,
there's something that happens.
Something happened to these people to put them on the streets in the first place, and then there's nothing in place to help them try and get off them.
Right.
And that is really, it baffles me. It baffles me.
It's disheartening.
Oh, it's so disheartening.
But I do get how people are desensitized to it. Like I recall driving through there one time on an errand to like do some fashion stuff, and like seeing a man and a woman fighting outside of a tent, and like actually tried to intervene with my vehicle.
Yeah.
Like they were, he was attacking her, and she got on the other side of my car, so I drove the car in between them. But he went around. She shot him. She shot him in the street, and you know, when she shot him, I kept moving. So I'm like, okay, she kind of has it under control. But like, there was a cop car right to the left of me.
Oh,
the cop just banged the left and kept going.
Oh.
So
that's wild.
yeah.
That's absolutely wild. That's crazy to me. Was he okay?
Nah, I mean, she shot him. I don't think she killed him, but I think she hit him in like the arm or something. But
she shot him.
She shot him. She was like fighting for her safety. She was fighting for her life. So
See, that's the thing. It's not.
But but the thing that struck me as odd. I actually talked about it on Twitter, which I don't tweet. I tweeted about it, and I'm like I'm too used to violence.
Yeah.
Like I kept driving. I'm like, oh, okay. Like shot him. Like the cops stops and run. And like that's not cool.
I'm definitely not used to violence.
Right.
I don't think there are homeless in Melbourne, and there's certainly homeless in the UK. Not to this extent. But I've never felt unsafe by walking around Melbourne or where I'm from in the UK. But there have been points here where I felt a little uncomfortable.
Right.
And I can handle myself. I'm pretty tough. I grew up tough.
Right.
And I can handle myself, and I like to think that I would extend a little bit of kindness to anybody. Like Steve earlier on.
Right.
Sat down and had a little moment.
Right.
I'm never going to reject anybody based on their circumstances because that's shit.
Yeah.
And that's
it's dehumanizing.
It's dehumanizing, and that's probably not helpful to people. And I think extending a little bit of kindness and compassion, it goes a long way.
I think your perspective and the perspective of other people from Australia, from Europe, who are not necessarily here, is kind of refreshing. And it's kind of sad to like have that realization that like Americans kind of don't give a fuck.
I don't think they do, to be honest. And I know that sounds really brutal. I'm really sorry. I don't think they do.
Right.
And it's weird because I don't know why I thought this. And I don't know if it's the way that Americans are portrayed in the press internationally.
I was going to ask you that next. Go ahead.
But I thought that New Yorkers were horrible and that they were rude and dismissive and cold. And I thought that Brooklyn was dangerous and all the things.
History.
I know it's got a little bit of history. I feel like because doing gentrification a little bit, it's probably a lot of white people moving in.
Yeah.
I feel like Brooklyn's probably shifting somewhat.
It's a bit sick.
Which is a shame though as well for a lot of reasons.
That's mixed feelings.
I suppose it's pros and cons to all sorts of those.
It's good to not have shootouts in the street.
It is very good.
It's good to not have crack vials on the floor.
But it's also if they're like bulldozing buildings to build fancy luxury apartments.
Yes, it's not good to have no mom and pop stores.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I had this perception of New Yorkers having never been there. It's my first time in New York. New Yorkers are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
They're lovely.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm a novelty, and I don't know if because I'm English and because I'm traveling and I'm passing through and
there's a bit of that.
I think there might be a bit of that.
There's also like a bit of New Yorkers also historically don't really care.
Yeah, and they've got a lot going on.
Right.
There's a lot going on.
So if you've been extended courtesies and pleasantries and it's still an energy exchange, so that's cool.
But like even in the street walking around, people like before we'd even said hello or spoken or anyone knew that we were like British and Australian wandering around or whatever. People just compliments on your outfit or saying hi, and I was like, I was really surprised by that.
Right.
People like we got serenaded on the subway.
Oh wow! By
it was amazing.
Like a performer or just like a random?
I think, and I don't want to be presume anything, but I think he was a homeless man and he was trying to make a bit of money.
Yeah.
But he was incredibly talented. He had his guitar and he was so talented, and we gave him some money and we said thank you, and it was a really nice experience. He was very polite. Right. But I think he was.
Yeah, there's a lot of really talented people who.
Of course.
There's
not a lot of money creativity until you make it.
Until you
make it.
Get that cosign or opportunity or contract or whatever. Yeah.
He was brilliant. He was so good. He was very talented.
There are some legendary performers who do street performances.
Yeah, he was amazing.
In terms of media representation, though, how people are portrayed, I wanted to ask you specifically about like people of my hue who live in the U.S. How are we portrayed?
Oh, well,
via media there. What do you see and what do you like? What sort of opinions do you draw from the images? Like these all rappers?
Well, I don't know, musical.
Right.
Potentially. Do you know, actually, I was talking to Millie about this the other day. I don't know if American press really makes the news in Australia. It's the same with the UK because the UK press doesn't make. There's no news on England in Australia. It's quite protected, and if something's going on, I hear about it from my parents or my sister or my friends in the UK.
Right.
And I think it's similar in Australia with American news, so to speak, or like media. I think for me, look, I don't really have any opinions on it. I think I was saying to Millie, because we were in Brooklyn, it's quite a black population, heavy black population, and it's great. And I say, there's so much culture and soul, and it just feels so warm and inviting, and more so even than Look, there you go. Look at those guys.
Oh yeah. How many is it?
Two. No helmets. Lawless, absolutely lawless.
Usually you'll see like 7 to 10. Yeah, it's a lot more. I was gonna say you usually see a lot more.
You go to prison for that in Australia.
No, they just
they lock him up.
Yeah, they just run wild on here.
Is that a Wild Wild West?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, but just in Brooklyn, I found everyone was welcoming. They wanted to feed you, they wanted to look after you.
Right.
Everyone was so stylish and so gorgeous.
Right.
And I feel like for me, I'm really intrigued by black culture. And I think we have to be really careful at the minute because everyone's so sensitive and easily offended. We met a young girl called America on a night out. She was gorgeous, absolute darling, and she took us to a club in Brooklyn. It was called something, and it was like a late night club. It was like 2:30 a.m.
So after hours.
Yeah, and we were the only white girls in there. Millie and I. And I didn't feel uncomfortable, but I was conscious of the fact that we were the only white girls in there. Right. And we walked in and we sat down at the bar and we had a drink and I was just looking around, just like enjoying myself. It was like I don't drink. Right. So I wasn't sober, but I wasn't drunk. Right. And it was awesome. Everyone was so welcome. Like, what are you doing here?
That's cool. That's cool.
Because I did feel like it could go either way. They were like, what are you doing here? Especially with there is a shift in Brooklyn. You can feel it.
Right. The energy. Right.
Yeah. And it was like 2:30 in the morning. It was pumping in there, and it was really, really good fun. And like we were on the dance floor, and it was great. And we were just having a good time. Nice. And everyone was just like, "What are you doing here? Where are you from? How long are you staying? Right. What do you do?" And it just felt really good. Yeah. And I've never been in a situation like that before.
That's cool.
I've never been in a situation like that.
For that to be your first experience. That's
cool. And it was awesome. And it really, and that was like on maybe the third or fourth night after we'd gotten there. And for me, that kind of cemented how I felt about the whole situation. Right. And it was great. And I had a good time. And I felt really comfortable talking to anybody. And I always have. I grew up in a really kind of, not rough, right, but a little rough. A little rough part of the UK. And I went to school and it was a small white population where I went to school, but it was more kind of Pakistani, Indian population than anything else. So I've grown up in a very kind of diverse environment. Right. So I've never had any opinions about race. I've always just been, you are what you are, and that's fine. Okay. Just being happy.
So I have another question then. Yeah. Piggybacking off of that, have you witnessed any violence here, or any sort of like?
I've not really witnessed any violence. We had a couple of occasions on subway. And a guy who was a bit freaky, and he came straight up to Millie's face and he was like, right here. And he said, "What the fuck are you looking at?" right in her face, and she just went, oh, and then he just walked off the train. And I don't think she was looking at him because she was talking to me at the time, so I don't think she was actually looking at him.
So that played. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your story.
And there was one more, and the morning, not yesterday morning, the morning before, I was walking around. We were staying in Silver Lake, and I'm only listen. I get up early, go for a run or a walk, take the dog out, whatever. And I went and I got up and I just thought, right, I'm just gonna go for a walk around and just see some stuff while I'm here. And I was walking alongside the hospital, just in Silver Lake, and a guy walked up to me again. I think a victim of society.
Right.
And he had no shoes on and he was pretty dishevelled, and he came up to me and he grabbed my arm.
Oh.
And
Wow.
And he kind of grabbed my arm and he kind of tugged it and he said, "Do you have a cigarette?" And I sort of and he said it again. He's like, "Do you have a cigarette?" And I was like, "No." And I kind of like shrugged back and took a couple of steps backwards. And he said, "Where's the beer?" And I was like,
"Wow."
And I just kept walking and I just kind of like scurried off a bit. But that's all.
So both of those incidents that you described are the precursors to actually something that's been popularized in American or Black American culture called N-word moments. Have you ever seen the series?
The guy who grabbed my arm was a white man.
I don't think that matters.
Just to clarify.
But I'm trying to inject a little bit of humor here. I don't know if have you ever seen the series, the animated series, The Boondocks?
No.
Okay, you should watch The Boondocks. It's written by a genius animator. He used to make a comic strip. His name is Aaron Magruder, and he used to make a comic strip in the paper. And one of the episodes is called N-word, nigger moments. Do you have internet on right now on your phone?
Yeah, I've got internet.
I can literally, the description that you gave of the incident with Millie happened.
Here's my list of things that people have told me to do.
So if you can go to YouTube just real quick,
okay.
We should watch this skit just strip real quick. And I'm going to make a point here, but I want you to see it first before.
What am I looking for?
N-word moment, Boondocks.
Oh, came up.
Yeah, it's super popular.
Okay, this one?
Yeah, it's that way. Let's see.
Boondocks, the story of Anti-Racist.
Just put N-word moments. Moments there.
Alright. Oh yeah, you can't see my screen, can you? I'm sorry.
Let's see.
Boondocks. I've never heard of that.
Never heard of Boondocks?
No. Is it American?
Yeah, it is. Alright, this is gonna be funny, but like, why can't I can't spell legal apparently. All of a sudden.
Same. It's always when you're typing under pressure.
Right.
It's like you're trying to find something.
Okay, boom. Incidental brush.
Watch where you walking, nigga. I want you say, nigga.
Watch closely. You're about to experience a nigga moment. Webster defines the nigga moment as a moment when ignorance overwhelms the mind of an otherwise logical Negro man.
What did you say, bitch, nigga? Hey, squeeze it, nigga.
Causing him to act in an illogical, self-destructive manner, i.e., like a nigga. Nigga moments are addictive.
Hey, wait, man, wait. This is stupid. Hey, you right, dog. Look, let's put the guns away and go on about our business. Freeze!
All in the bag. If they had their own category, nigga moments would be the third leading killer of black men behind pork chops and feet. It's a fact. Now let's see how a nigga moment affects a white man.
Watch where you walking, bitch.
What did you... Wait a minute.
So, the way you described what happened to Millie, right? If it would have happened to me or happened to, say, most black men that I know, if a guy gets
Just
that
black
close,
men?
not just black men, but because I'm going to make a point. The way they portrayed it is that it's a kind of like part of black culture.
Yeah, but will black women do that?
Probably. It depends on like your inclinations, where you're born, what environment you grew up in, and if you felt like you could handle the situation.
Yeah.
Right. So that sort of confrontation would lead to a reaction that is equally matches the energy.
Would you react?
If you have gotten that close, if you get that close to me, I'm probably going to put hands on you. Like, I'm not going to, within arm's reach is too close.
Do you want to know something?
But I am a fighter.
Well, you are, which is probably something to consider. But I think if a woman came up to me in my face like this, I'd put hands on her.
Right.
A man, I think I'd be
think twice.
I think I'd think twice.
Right.
Because I've been hit by a man before.
Oh wow.
Not pretty.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, it is shit.
Yeah.
And it's not great. But I think if a woman did it, I wouldn't shy away from putting my hands on it. But yeah, I can't be bothered with the men. I'd rather just skirt out of that situation.
Right.
But yeah, I think
I know
hear you.
I know people who've died from like that sort of instance where like, and old Brooklyn used to be that way where somebody could just look at you and you're like looking at me. Like, reckless eyeballing, you're schooling me, like school face, like looking at me, like it'll turn into a thing.
Yeah, see, that's
And so a lot of times that is portrayed as black culture, right? And I think a lot of black American people actually believe that that's black culture because we've seen it and we've experienced it.
And you would contribute to it.
Right. But what I've learned recently from reading or listening to, I don't know if you're familiar with Thomas Sowell.
No.
Okay, he's a great American thinker and writer. What's that?
Oh, recent?
No, he's pretty old. He's in his 90s.
Right, okay.
But he unveiled like the history of like basically Southern black culture was considered Southern black culture, and he says in this history that sort of hyper aggressive behavior was taught by really like the Scottish. Apparently, the Scottish, not just the Scottish, but I guess Scottish. He gives like, I don't want to misquote, but he gives like very specific areas of like Scotland and I think Northern England actually.
Oh wow, that's funny because I'm Scottish and Northern English.
So my great grandfather's Scottish.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, the Scots are brilliant. The Scots are great. They're my favourite people. So
what? My great grandfather. Great grandfather. What he says is that prior to them coming here, the clans were always fighting.
Always.
Stop. And so that hyper aggressive, like it'd be over a look, or you disrespected me, or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well,
right?
the clans were always fighting, but they unified to fight the English because the English were.
So they had a common.
The English were doing the typical English thing as they do everywhere.
Right.
And just invading, colonising, and raping, pillage, and all the rest of it. So many of the clans united to fight the English.
They found a common enemy.
They did.
But so here, when lots of Scots came here, like my great grandfather, he actually had money. So he came here with money and land. He bought land and stuff, and like my great grandmother and like made babies.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So
the Scots. I feel like the Scots at the minute because I went to uni in Scotland and it was the best. So a lot of my long-term best friends are Scottish.
Right.
My mum's family are all Scottish. Mum's Scottish. They're very cheeky. Like if someone says something to you in the street, you will answer back.
So that apparently was taught to black people brought here from where Africa, from the diaspora, wherever it came, however they ended up in the South. That was the prevalent culture amongst the Scots. And so what we have what we have absorbed as our culture, because our culture was taken from us, we absorbed what was around us. And so, like, that's not like black culture. It was so interesting to hear because I'm like,
It
what?
is, that's fascinating. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And, I've always thought that. So, yeah, Thomas Sowell. If you ever get a chance to look him up and, like.
One of the list of things that
Yeah.
everyone.
So we went from something funny to something a little bit educational. Right?
Thomas Sowell, S-A...
Sowell.
Alright. Yeah, because I genuinely do, like, the Scots will answer back.
Mm-hmm.
They're scrappy.
Mm-hmm.
They're a scrap in the street. They're cheeky. If you call it, they'll give it to you. And if you're on good terms with them, they'll still give it to you in a very affectionate way, but they'll give it to you.
Right.
But yeah, I can see that and I can understand that.
He said they would pistol duel over insults.
Yeah, they used to do that in England as well. And they
Over an insult?
Yeah. If they insulted someone, they used to do that in Old England as well. And they'd literally have a duel, and if they shot someone dead, they shot someone dead.
Right. And it was just whatever.
That was it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Kind of nuts to think about, right?
I think life wasn't as valuable back then. People didn't give a shit about it. Life was just tossed around all over the place, and nobody really cared.
Here's a point that there's a reason why I think, though. This is my theory. Things are just a little bit tougher. And when things are tougher for people, you become more callous.
Absolutely.
And so I think that is. So we look at it now, like you can look at socioeconomic circumstances, right, and see that people who are in tougher situations behave a bit more callously to their fellow person, right?
Yeah.
So I think across the board, that rings true, and I think people will be well served to remember that.
Yeah. I think that's incredibly true because if you think about history and where we are now, there's a lot of, it's so shit, everything's so hard, everything's so challenging, so tough. And it is, and I'm not, discrediting that.
Right.
But if you look back over, like, even, the Holocaust was in, like, a couple of generations ago. That was in my granddad's lifetime. That shit like that was happening in the world.
Yes.
It's still happening.
Yes.
It's still happening. You look at some of the African countries, there's still major genocide.
Yes.
It's still going on.
It's still like slavery.
Slavery. I think slavery is as prevalent as it's ever been.
Yeah.
If not more so.
Yeah.
A lot of these Asian